There we go. All right, everyone. Well, welcome to another edition of the Unpredictable Pipeline. So happy to have you watching again. We are featuring so far this year stories of resilience and comeback and innovation and creativity from some of B2B's leading CMOs that have been navigating 2020, figuring out how to pivot in the midst of all kinds of headwinds and thinking about what that looks like for their companies, for their teams, for their industries heading into 2021. Very excited to have with us today Cindy Zhou. She is the CMO at LogRhythm. And Cindy, first of all, thanks for joining us today.
Well, Matt, thanks so much for having me. I'm a fan of the show and excited to be here.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I know we're getting here towards the end of the year, big planning mode for the new year as well. And, you are still less than a year on the job leading, marketing for a new company, which means, so the pandemic and the headwinds of the pandemic are kind of your normal in this role so far. But talk a little about what it's been like to sort of come into an organization and lead not through change, but in the midst of change. And what are some of the lessons and best practices you've pulled from that?
Yeah, well, thanks so much, Matt. Yeah, I'm very fortunate to be a part of this great cybersecurity software company called LogRhythm. And I joined exactly a year ago. So I joined the company this time last year. And just like you mentioned, right, it's in that beginning phase of all of your plans for a new role at a company going through transformation. You want to transform marketing, and then there's all these plans. And I think looking back for year to date, it's been really a great ride. We accomplished a lot in a time period during COVID, during the pandemic, et cetera. And yeah, there's definitely a lot of lessons for myself too. And I'm on a constant learning basis. I rely on a lot of folks like yourself. Also at different CMO groups that I'm a part of. I rely on my peers for kind of information about the broader market, et cetera. And yeah, I definitely say it's definitely been a roller coaster. We've had some extreme highs and some lows.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think this year has been sort of certainly a catalyst of learning, a lot of new experiences, new circumstances that we're all having to wade through together. But that's just kind of a constant for anybody in any industry, but especially for a marketing leader, where buying conditions are changing, selling conditions are changing, the channels open to you are changing. And I think one of the key elements of successful CMOs is the willingness to be vulnerable, to not always have the answers, but also the willingness to learn, sort of when the variables are not just different, but sort of unique and new, such that no one's really had to face this before. So by definition, you don't have the answers because no one does.
Absolutely. I remember when the pandemic first hit and we actually closed our office. I shouldn't say first hit, but when we first closed our office, one of the things that our CEO, Mark Logan, said to all of us was, there's no Harvard Business Review case study to go to about how to deal in a pandemic. I definitely will say that part of and again, some of this is, I'm going to be showing my age, et cetera, is when you've gone through a few of these different types of economic downturns, right? So starting for myself, being a working person during the 2000, tech bust, and then you look at the 2008 financial crisis, and then you look at now, I think that there are some lessons there. And so recently I've been reading a lot more about older articles, rereading books like Innovator's Dilemma, looking at business cases. I mean, I wrote a business case on Netflix for my MBA, and looking at some of the lessons from those companies that not only weathered the storm but come back strong and thriving. And those are, I think, the many things that we can take away and how we plan for recovery in this economy.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we may not have had a global pandemic that's this disruptive in, 100 odd years, but, I started my business 12 years ago in November 2008 in the heart of the recession. And, certainly I'm old enough to remember 2000 as well. And the bubble that burst. And, we all think, oh, this is the end of the world. I don't know. It was not going to be that long before we're back at conferences, before we're back not just choosing what one or two things we want to prioritize, but saying, let's try everything. We got to grow faster. So there are lessons, I think, now in terms of focus and discipline, in terms of really tight decision making, that when you are in a straightaway, when you have more resources, are still valuable. What are some of the things that you employ now, that you see successful companies employ, that are worth remembering as markets open up and things get going again?
Yeah, absolutely. And Matt, I'll go back to something you just said earlier, right? Which is us as marketers, and for every marketer listening to your show right now, that's the constant, is that you just have to lean in and embrace change. Because
Mhm.
you look at how we do marketing, it is changing every 3 to 5 years. And you can't rest on what worked for you in the past. So it is all about embracing experimentation. So that would be one of the things that I will share, that we were extremely fortunate. I'm a digital CMO. When I joined LogRhythm, we said we got to pivot to embracing a lot more digital. Thankfully, we did that before the pandemic, and so those plans were already underway. But those things, those strategies, embrace those. Be open-minded to anything new. Reserve 10-15% of your budget to experiment on different things. So I think that will be a constant lesson that will take us all through the rest of the pandemic and in the future, right? It's all about keeping your ear to the ground on what's happening and being able to lean into those new ideas.
Yeah. Last question I want to ask you here before we let you go is just, what are the variables you're watching that are helping you make those decisions? And I see a lot of companies have sort of looked inward and said, like, what resources do we have? What pivots do we need to make? What channels are now gone and what do we have left? And what are we going to try? As opposed to the outward facing perspective of, what does our customer want? What is our prospect looking for? What are they experiencing? Not just with us, right? I mean, you can look at it, here's what they're getting from us. But if you do that, you may ignore the 84 other companies that are trying to approach them the same way. So how do you have the discipline of having and maintaining a outward facing customer centric approach to create more successful sales and marketing programs?
Yeah, Matt, I'll go back to that old Henry Ford quote, right, that I love, which is, if we listen to our customers, and we would be building faster horse and buggies, versus innovation into the automobile. So I think that that's definitely one of those things. And again, love our customers. I think customer feedback is incredibly important, but I think part of it is cross correlation. You want to look at external research. You want to look at, what the industry analyst firms are saying, what's happening in your market. You want to look at some of those, the macro kind of economic conditions. I think a lot of times, again, I've been a part of VCs, I've been a part of PE-backed companies and publicly traded companies. And one of the key things right now, particularly during times of pandemics, economic pullback, downturn, you want to look at making sure that you are having sustainable, profitable growth. So it's not this kind of growth at all costs and keep spending. It really is looking at your budget, being very thoughtful with that, and making sure that you do look at some of your historical trends, but try to cross correlate that with a lot of the external resources and your customer feedback. Triangulate it.
Yep. A lot of variables, a lot of things to look at. No one said this would be simple and easy, but that's why we get paid the big bucks, right? So, Cindy, last quick question before I promise we'll let you go. Yeah, big bucks is all relative. It's all. We're doing this at the end of the year. We are halfway through December. 2020 is thankfully almost over. I'm hearing a lot more people just talk about, sort of, for the end of this year and into next year, really prioritizing self-care. What is maybe a strategic or a tactical self-care recommendation you would give to other marketing leaders to make sure that they are giving themselves the space and the environment to lead in a healthy, successful way?
Well, I love this question, Matt, and I know none of these questions were planned, so I want to make that clear. With this, I really have to give a big shout out to our HR team at LogRhythm, and I think some of the ideas that they came up with, I will share with marketers here. One of the things is we created a work evolution committee. And the work evolution committee is looking at all things from employee well-being, health, wellness, etc. Part of it is a lot of us are having Zoom fatigue, a lot of meeting fatigue because everyone's on camera all day. So part of this is you do have to encourage your team to take the time for themselves, whether it's going outside for a walk, maybe not today because it's snowing in DC, but going out for a walk, it's spending the time that you need to take care of yourself, whether it's listening to an audio book, doing something for self-care. So we've been doing a lot of those types of programs where it's webinars where we bring in experts. We actually sent everyone in the Americas a wellness kit. It's a Get Fit kit. and it had like mine had a little bonsai tree. I wish I'd known this, I'd show it to you. Had a little bonsai tree you can grow, and it had a stretch band. And so I think those are the kinds of things that companies, when you take the time to do that, your employees recognize that. And so we've really had some great feedback from our team.
Yeah, I love that. I love that example. It reminds me, earlier today, I noticed a shout out to the folks at LeadMD. To literally, as we record this today, they have a thing where they've encouraged everyone to go out, take some time out of the day, get fit, get some exercise, and they're doing a competition where the more people that do that, the more the company is giving to a local Phoenix nonprofit. So a few different things there combined together. Well, I was feeling bad about the nearly inch of rain we're supposed to get today. I know you're potentially getting 2 feet of snow out there in the East Coast. Stay safe, stay warm. Cindy, thank you so much for doing this. Thank you everyone for watching another edition of the Unpredictable Pipeline. We'll see y'all next time.
Thanks so much.